So this Islam, and it spread, in terms of its out of Africa. It came out of Africa in many different ways, so that Islam is part of Africa. It's part of Africa, so that very often, for us, when we came back to Islam, for us it was like coming back home, because it's part of, of coming back or accepting who you were. As we know that more than 30% of the people who were brought here from Africa and sold into slavery, more than 30% of them were Muslim. All right. But Muslims did not come to the Americas, whether North or South or Central or the Caribbean, didn't come first as slaves. No, they were first came as explorers. As we know, Abu Bakr, as we mentioned, from the Mali Empire, who was succeeded by his brother Mansa Musa. Abu Bakr, he set off with 1,000 ships to discover the lands in this part of the world. And this is almost 800 years before Columbus reached these parts of the world. And so they came, and he never returned to Africa. So those people came to the Americas. There's evidence, established historical evidence, that people from Africa came to the Americas even before that period, even during the period of the Great Egyptian Civilization period. This theory was proved by a Norwegian explorer named Thor Heyerdahl, who he built in Egypt. He built bulrushes, a boat out of bulrushes in Egypt and Sudan, and he was able to cross. The first time he did it, he called it Rawan. They had a storm, and he had to board but in Ra 2, the second one, he tried it again, and he set across the Atlantic Ocean, and his boat came right into the Caribbean, landed in Barbados. Actually, I remember back in the 60s when that happened, when Thor Heyerdahl, it was a big thing back then, when he proved that the people from Africa came to the Americas, and of course, since then there's so many other evidence in that shore. But this is long before, and then we have now Abu Bakr, so he came here. When they prove one of the things that in relation to that we know that they were here, that when the Europeans came, even Columbus said he saw people in the Americas. In his memoirs, he mentioned he saw people here. He saw a mashed mosquito here before, when he was in one of the areas in the Americas. But when we talk about the Americas, we talk of general South Americas, North, South, and as the same part of the world. And there's a group that they used to call the Black Caribs in the Caribbean area, Central American area. They call them the Black Caribs, thinking that they were Caribs that were black. It is believed that these people, who we refer to now as the Garifuna, that they were descendants from those people that came in that early period of the time of Abu Bakr. It's believed that they're connected somewhere along the line. There's still speculation and discovery in relation to that, but there's a strong belief that they are connected. The Garifuna, which is now the main group, is based in Belize, in Central America, that they are descendants. They were not Caribs, they were actual descendants from the Abu Bakr's people who came in that early time as explorers. right? And of course, you find that the proof that they did come before people like, in books you'll find like, they came before Columbus, by Van Sertima, Imam Van Sertima, professor at Rutgers from originally from Guyana family background, Guyanese background. He's Professor Rutgers, Dr. Van Sertima. He did a lot of research in this, and he did a lot. If you get his book, They Came Before Columbus, and he showed a lot of evidence in relation to this, supporting that people from those parts of the world, they came to this world. So that was the early people, the early wave, I would say, that came. They came first as explorers, Muslims coming from Africa here as explorers. The second wave of Muslims to the Americas, and as I said before, when we talk about the Americas, I'm talking about North, South, Central, including the Caribbean. That is, the Americas as a whole. The second wave of Muslims coming to this part of the world was through the European slavery, the transatlantic slave trade. One of the darkest periods of human history was the transatlantic slave trade. It was more than slavery, because slavery is an age-old human institution that existed long before transatlantic slave. So it was and it was completely different. So the transatlantic slave trade created a whole new dark page in human history that you can almost say that it was oppression, not really slavery. It was oppression, it was murder, it was evil, it was dehumanizing, it was all the other stuff, all the evil stuff. Because slavery existed long before. In every society there was slavery from age-old. There's an age-old human institution of slavery. So there was slavery in Europe. There was, as a matter of fact, the word slave comes from the word Slav. Because they used to enslave the Slavic people back then, So you had this, Egyptians, Africans, Chinese, Indian. There was always slavery around for, as far as we know, from generations. So when you read in the old history books, Bible or anyone, you find out there were always slaves around. But it was never like European slavery. So European slavery is a completely different kind of slavery that took place, where they went and they kidnapped the people from Africa and they brought them to these areas and they sold them as slaves, as human chattel. And not just human, but actually Europeans to satisfy or to quell their conscience, they actually determined that these people, that all people were less than human. So this quelled, they quieted their conscience that, okay, well, we're not dealing with they're not fully humans. These are, they're less than human and we're civilizing them or whatever the case might be. But it was a very evil thing, that what they did. And millions of people died and suffered as a result of this. But so that is that evil system that actually the second. So we said about 30% or maybe more of those who were brought to this part of the world, they were Muslims, coming from the different different groups in tribes in Africa, from the Fula tribe or the Wolof tribe or the Mandi tribe, which were the Mandinkas, or the House, or Berbers were more to the north, of things. But these were the main tribes in which that many of them came from, as they made deals with the people, the coastal tribes, so that the already coastal tribes, they make an agreement that they'll go up the rivers, the Dahomey, the Senegambia River, and stuff like that, and they would raid those areas so many times that they captured Muslims and bring them Many Muslims were captured in those raids and bought as slaves on the ships. And so the Islam, Islam came then with that second wave of people who came. It is a reality that, an established fact, that many of those who came were educated, many of them even more educated than the European masters. They were more, they kept the books for the American masters, taught them skills, farming skills, and developed so many things, that kept the farms going. So they were also actually built the economic structure for the Europeans in the Americas, whether it be North or South or Central. And Europe itself gained prominence and gained wealth off of the backs of these or ancestors. That's even if they don't want to recognize or accept that as the point. So we know that many of them were Muslims. So they were many little traditions that came down from them that we know, that can see that they were Muslims. Unfortunately, with the rigors of slavery, right? With the rigors of slavery, and they were not allowed to. They were not allowed to maintain their name. They were not allowed to speak their language. They were not allowed to, they were punished for any of these things. Because they wanted to make them slaves both physically and mentally. And they did succeed in some cases, but not all, because there were always rebellions and uprisings led by Muslims against them, against this kind of oppression. As I said, the actual percentage we don't know, but there's been speculation in relation to this thing. But many of the Muslims were able to maintain some things, traditions of them. So you find that many of them, there are a lot of artifacts that exist. Muslims who wrote Quran by heart. There's one in Jamaica who wrote a Quran by heart. Even here in North America, there are a lot of Muslims. Inshallah, we'll probably talk about them in another session.